Welcome back to Talkville, the ultimate Smallville rewatch podcast, where each week we go way back. We watch every episode, I can't speak. It's okay. You know what I do. And it's a show that it changed us. It changed you. We've had fans for many years. You stick around. We can't believe you're still here. And so that's why we're doing this, because you're here. We're here. Why the hell not? But we need you to keep going. So if you want to become a patron, join patreon.com/talkville. You don't know how much it helps the podcast. Look, if you didn't get a chance to call in and leave questions for this week's show, make sure you get some in for future episodes. The hotline is 213-538-2883. That's 213-538-2883. Tom, tell them about the messages they leave.
They're very important, and they're fun, because a lot of times it's things that we don't know about, or perspective that we don't appreciate, or we don't know to appreciate.
Socials, please follow us on our handles and write a review. You don't know how much reviews help. The handles are Talkville Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Talkville Pod on the Twitter. Also, I will say that Tom had recently done an episode of the Winchesters.
Yeah, I did.
So I can't wait to see that. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm going to be on a couple episodes. I think I appear in episode 7, and then a couple after that. So check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's a great cast, great kids, and a fun idea. Great kids. That's how old we are. Great kids on that show. I'll tell you. Well, they're all older than I was when I started Smallville. It's a mind trip for sure.
It is. I bet it is. All right. Oh, by the way, if you want to get Smallville merch, Talkville merch, you go to talkvillepodcast.com.
I wish you could see the deer
Ryan
in the
called
headlights look that I'm getting.
Is that right? Is that right, Ryan?
talkvillepodcast.com.
Talkvillepodcast.com. A lot of people have been buying merch and wearing shirts and sending pictures, and we love it.
I saw him in London.
There's tons of stuff on there too. We got hats and shirts and all sorts of stuff. We're going to get more stuff too. We're going to get maybe just other cool stuff. So go to talkvillepodcast.com.
Maybe we'll throw in some athletic greens.
Without further ado, let's get into season 1, episode 19. We're almost at the end. This episode is called Crush.
Yeah, are you almost at the end? Is that a good thing, or is it a sad thing for you?
Well, at the end of season 1, we've got a lot of seasons to go, but I gotta say, it went by pretty fast. This has flown by season 1. I'm like, wow, we're done with a whole season, and it felt like it just went by in a flash.
It's a lot of it's like shooting the series was the same way. It's like the days of the week. Mondays are rough, Tuesdays are like, and then at the end of Wednesday, you're like, we're almost there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I think we're in the Thursday of this first season podcast.
Look at this. Somebody made me or us, but they sent it to me, my business manager, Talkville, what's it called?
Toaster.
Thanks.
Oh, nice.
Nothing to put drink on.
Put your drinks on there. Title, Crush. Aired May 7th, 2002. Director, James Marshall. I was 30 years old. Director James Marshall. I'm sure we worked a lot. Probably too much.
Oh yeah, he went on to be our showrunner, and many good things and so many challenging things.
Many challenging
result
things.
of James.
He was a showrunner. I thought Beeman was our showrunner.
Not the whole time. Maybe it was after you left, but James ran that ship. Bro.
I think he after I left.
He took over. Yeah, he was a great showrunner. He was very good at being a showrunner. He was an excellent director. And I would say this to his face. I think as a director, he shot himself in the foot a lot of times trying to push the limits of what a director could do on a show that was pretty much,
formulaic.
87% of the show had to be what it's going to be anyway. And then as a director, you come in with about, that different percentage to put your fingerprint on it. And, but to this day, I love the guy. He was just
James was a good director, and I gotta say, we butted heads a lot, but we also laughed a lot. We also respected each other, like for the most part.
I actually learned a lot from your and James' relationship. I saw you guys sort of butt heads, and then laugh. And I'm like, oh,
you gotta let it go. We differ. We would say no, bullshit, and we were like, I remember we got in a real heated argument one time. And then we talked about it and everything was fine. We just let it go. It's kind of like two hockey players on the ice. Contrary to popular belief, hockey players, they're very classy. they don't understand. People think fighting is for goons. I can't believe there's fighting allowed in a sport. Well, it's part of it when you're skating super fast and you're hitting and you're checking and there's emotions. You hit somebody hard and all of a sudden your team's losing and you just go, let's go. And a fight can change the momentum of a game. But when those players are done fighting, it's over.
It's
they
respect.
can meet
It's
at a bar and
boxing.
have a drink. It's over. It is over. They don't hold grudges for the most part. Okay. Writers Al Goff, Miles Miller, Philip Levins. By the way, we have a great guest star today on the podcast. You want to stick around. He knows a lot about the show, probably more than we do. He was there for a long time, as long as Tom. Probably longer because he was there all day.
And he went on to create.
He went on to create a lot of things.
Create other TV shows.
Well, I don't know if he created other TV shows. Did he? Well, let's get into that.
In my mind, he did from a visual aspect.
Yeah.
We can ask him about that. We can ask him
done.
about how many shows he's created.
Guest star on the Smallville episode Crush, Adam Brody as
Top
Justin
10.
Gaines.
Top 10 ever.
So good.
He's good.
So good.
He's got a weird voice, doesn't he?
Everything about him is weird. It was weird. He was weird to be around. Not in a.
He was good.
He wasn't a weird
guy.
person. His performance was awkward. It was obtuse, but it was grounded, and like you believed everything he was saying. It was very.
I
easy
agree.
to
Good actor, man.
And then not 2 years later would lead to a very similar role on the OC.
Yeah.
Yes, Hiro
You're
Kanagawa
welcome,
as Principal
OC.
James Kwan. And right now, I just want to give a shout out because I was really shocked and surprised that Hiro Kanagawa died in this episode.
Well, spoiler alert.
Principal James Kwan. Well, we're going to get into it. We're here.
It wasn't his fault.
And it really shocked me that they would kill Principal Kwan off. He was a good character. I liked his presence. I just, it's kind of sad seeing him like.
I feel like his last moment was finally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we
Let go of
I'm leaving
Smallville.
this.
we did just talk about him and give him some props after the last one, after all the stuff that he saw.
Oh,
He goes
Just
out
poor
hard,
guy.
man. Oof.
and as far as I know, from a at the high school, I feel like he was the only person there. Like, where are the teachers? Where's
Yeah, I never saw teachers. Well, you saw teachers every once. Remember Chloe's dad?
But they weren't a part of it. I feel he
was a
carried
part of
the
the-
burden. He carried the burden.
Yeah. So God bless you. Rest in peace, Principal James Kwan. Donna Bullock as Pamela Jenkins. Synopsis: Chloe falls for Justin Gaines, a telekinetic kid seeking revenge against the surgeon who couldn't heal him and the driver who hit him. Clark is jealous and vents to Lana, who is having her own relationship problems. Lex reconciles with his childhood nanny, and Whitney's father passes. Lot to discuss in
Lana
this
doesn't
one.
have relationship problems. She has relationship challenges. She's in a relationship that you almost think that she'd like to. She's just timing it so she can get out of it. That's what it seems like.
Yeah. One thing I always had a problem with was that it's so clear. It's abundantly clear you both have feelings for each other. It's so clear that it's almost stupid.
Well, we have a kitchen scene in this episode that it's like right there.
And it's
Right
like,
there.
I understand that she doesn't want to dump the guy because his dad just died. Okay, cool. But like, let's be honest. He's just a pain in the ass. He's a thorn in your side. He's the jock that you never want to be with a jock. Lana's doesn't want to be with a jock. Clark's sweet. He's going to treat you well. He always there to protect you. He probably saved you 400 times already. Cool opening transition shot going into Metropolis Children's Hospital. We see Justin Gaines.
Sorry, great shot, by the way. That was cool. It was almost like Halloween-esque. Like everything going down in there. Like, what a great opening.
Yeah, it really was. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
A young artist who's been hospitalized after a tragic car hit and run, lashing out at the doctor who treated him. As the doctor attempts to leave the hospital with his wife, their elevator gets stuck between floors. His wife is able to make it out, but the doctor loses his hands when the elevator drops, as Justin
Awesome.
blemishes the hands of a portrait of the doctor like a voodoo doll.
Dude, that was so well done. It was gnarly. Like, when I rewatched it in anticipation of this episode, like the fact that he's like in the elevator and you're like, okay, like I get it, okay, cool, and then his hands are there, you're just like, no, and then
Yeah, it was cool. I gotta
Love
say,
it.
this episode was dark.
dark.
Really dark. And I like that.
Dark.
I like when it gets dark. If you combine fluff and dark, you kind of get something in the middle, which is nice. You balance. It's a balance.
Dark,
Sometimes
fluff.
There we go. Smallville High has its career day. Clark is recommended for the Air Force. Pete gets a job for Mayor Siegel, and Chloe tries to get one of the limited positions at the Daily Planet.
Well, that was another one of those Superman line drops.
What'd you say?
Well, the scene starts with, "I see you in a uniform flying."
Yeah, that's right. Good for you. Chloe is upset at Clark for neglecting their friendship and spending more time with Lana. Lex.
I made Lex and Lana more important than anyone else, as far as Clark's concerned.
Well, I think maybe they are more important to you.
Well, Pete goes on to say, "Duh, Clark, she's into you, and you
don't really hang out with Chloe outside of school. She's just there talking your ear off anyway most of the time."
I'm pretty sure that's what she's saying. I only see you at school, and we're trying to do things outside of school, and you're not pulling up the slack. So
yeah, I see why she's upset. I thought she did a really good job too in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Justin Gaines has recovered enough to return to school in Smallville, where he thanks Chloe for writing to him while he was in the hospital. He asks her out for coffee, and she agrees while making eye contact with Clark down the hall. Ooh.
Wait, so one thing I want to go back. I thought it was really cool the reveal they did as well, where his hands. It was very subtle how they did it, because I was confused. With the doctor before the elevator, he's drawing and he's like, "See what you did to me? I can't do anything." And then it's very subtle. He flips the page and there's this beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did he do that? And throughout the episode, you realize he can control things.
Yeah.
Telekinesis is what Chloe later says. And I thought it was a nice, less than obvious reveal of who he is. And I appreciated that.
You know what I thought? Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
Probably not.
But I thought that he was lying and he actually could draw at first, until later on I realized, did you think that too?
I did too.
Yeah, I thought, he's lying. He can draw. His hands do work.
But that's what made the telekinetic reveal cooler, I think.
Yeah. Then it made sense. But then I forgot about it until just now. Clark meets with Justin and Chloe inside the Torch, and 3 discuss the hit and run that put him in the hospital. He remembers partials from the license plate.
Well, listen, this is a synopsis.
And Chloe wants to investigate.
What you're missing in this quick synopsis is the looks between the characters and why, this is where the attention, people vying for others' attention. And what I love about what Adam did throughout this whole thing is he sort of saw it, but he wasn't afraid of it. Like his character was like, there's a kiss later with Chloe and Adam's character, and Clark walks in and Adam's like, "Yeah. What are you going to do about it?" And I was like, that's cool, dude. He wasn't like, oh, I'm embarrassed. That's the easy move. He just holds his ground. And that's why I just, love this
I agree with that. Was this the same moment where he drops the papers and we see that stuff?
Yeah. About
that's later. Never mind. In Metropolis, we see Lex visiting the grave of his mother on the anniversary of her death. His visit is interrupted by Pamela Jenkins, Lex's former nanny. She hasn't been in contact with him in years, so he is upset by her popping back up and decides to leave.
Also, great storytelling. Who is this woman? It's not revealed right away. It's a slow burn. I appreciated that.
I did too. And I like that they show you a little backstory, a little like, wow, Lex really loved his mom. Maybe we'll find out something about his mom later. This guy had obviously a lot of tragedies in his life, and this was a big one. How did she die? Well, we don't know that yet, but we're going to find out who this woman is.
Well, moms are very important.
And that was the thing that he's been missing, and he had 2 important mother figures in his life, we're finding out.
Yeah, and they both left him, one inadvertently.
Because his father's unable to give him the love that he needs.
Thank you, Ryan.
Well, yeah. I don't want to do a dive deep, but yeah, there's a father love and there's a mother love, and a mother love it's amazing. Sorry.
I can talk about that, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's funny. I'm not going to get into it, but I definitely know my mother loves me, just to make that clear. I know she loves me. I love my mother. She's just
in her own way.
Yeah, she's just a very difficult person, and she wasn't meant for motherhood, I don't think. I think she just wasn't meant for that, and that's all I'll say. Later, Lana meets up with Clark at the Kent farm, and Clark vents to Lana about Chloe's feelings for him. He confesses that he feels like they could be more than friends, and he's jealous.
One of Kristen's best moments, not that she doesn't have a lot of them, is when he says, so how many pies, how many pies do you want? And the way she says a dozen, like she just steps away from it, what she's saying a little bit. It's well done.
It's, I find it weird that never throughout this series so far has it ever been addressed or insinuated that Clark has feelings for Chloe. And what's weird is, I don't know if it's me, maybe because I'm too close to the show, but as a fan, I don't want Clark to be with Chloe. I don't think it doesn't feel right. It feels weird. It just doesn't feel right.
Well, if nothing else, you haven't been given the romantic situations that you've been given with Lana and Clark.
Yeah, it just seems kind of out of the blue. She seems kind of like, career-oriented and fun and full of life. And, Clark's this, and they're just buddies and they tell each other a lot of things. But it doesn't seem like, I don't see chemistry at all.
And then all of a sudden in this episode, she's like, you didn't call me back. I hate you.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be the trope of the girl who was there all along is supposed to be the one? Like,
of course.
Off pining. Yeah, because she's always been the option. Is that why?
But that never happens. Let's be realistic here. Back at home, we see Justin working on a portrait of Chloe. Frustrated by the lack of control of his hands, he resorts to using his mind and drawing with telekinesis. The next day at school, Clark tells Pete he's worried for Chloe after finding a newspaper article of a doctor losing hands in Justin's bag. Justin overhears the conversation and tells him that he had his chance with Chloe and to step off.
There's also a moment in this episode where he acknowledges he lost his ability and he made up for it, but he's still not. Aside from like controlling bees, perhaps, where you're like, oh, this is the best thing I have going for me that I've ever had. This guy was a great artist, lost the use of his hands, but now can like mind control everything, yet he still wants his original gift.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's a cool thing. He's not like, oh, wait, I can control everything now.
Yeah.
But he wants what he had. And I don't know. There's something that resonates with me about that.
Yeah. For some reason, this didn't bother me, the telekinesis, as much as the bees. This didn't bother me as much. I like the relationships more, though, in this episode, the connections. I wasn't really thinking of the telekinesis so much. I was like, okay, I'm going to let that go because I'm invested.
Yeah.
Well, also, here's the big difference. The girl with the bees was hurting people who didn't hurt her. Here he is having revenge on people who hurted him.
Well, we'll see.
So
Pamela returns to Lutheran Manor to talk Manor. Well, it says Manor, but I'm going to say Mansion, to talk with Alexander. Lex thinks that Pamela lied to his mother on her deathbed, but Pamela was scared away from the family by Lionel's threats. So he finds out that, but it still kicks her out. At the town, Whitney stops by to make plans with Lana, who confides in Clark about how much unwanted attention she's been getting from him since his dad has been feeling better. Clark then talks about regrets for letting a previous relationship slip into the friend zone, Lana, and not wanting to let it happen again with Chloe. Inside the torch, and I thought that was a really nice scene. I think, you and Lana, your scenes are really good together. You guys have chemistry. It's just there. The both of you, it just looks like I could tell you like each other. It just seems right. I don't know. Anyway, inside the torch, Chloe tells Justin that he's working for the DMV to get the license plate of his hit and run driver. Justin then tells her that he's had a crush on her for a long time after gifting her the telekinetic portrait of herself. The two then make out, and objects around the room lift around them. This catches.
By the way, the one that's focused on,
the little doll or whatever,
the little alien. It's a green alien guy.
Yeah,
that was definitely not an accident.
Symbolism. Yeah, James probably thought he was genius for that moment. He's like, I got that one. I got that. You'll be an alien. Just, This catches Chloe's eyes, and Justin confesses his new telekinetic powers. Chloe is totally cool with it. See, if Clark just said he had these powers, Chloe could have been cool with it.
Well, he prefaced it. He said, "Can you have an open mind?" And by the way, Chloe's seen a lot of strange stuff. So
she has. Yeah, Clark walks in asking to speak to Chloe in private. He tries to warn Chloe about Justin and thinks she's only pursuing Justin to get back at him. Then a fax comes in from the DMV with the details of the driver who was attaching.
Really selfish.
Huh?
That's extremely selfish.
Yeah, exactly. A fax comes in from the DMV with the details of the driver who has matching plates, and it's Mr. Kwan! Principal Kwan! How could this be?
By the way, didn't see that coming.
Didn't see that coming.
Like, as much as it's funny, never would have thought of it. I thought it would have just been somebody, somebody in Smallville. But Principal Kwan, what?
That's weird. That's dark. Justin goes to confront Kwan in the driveway of his home, but Kwan denies it. Justin then attacks him with his telekinesis, throwing him into the garage door. Then self-driving Kwan's own car, into him and through the garage. This kills Kwan.
By the way, this all happens with Kwan's car keys in his own pocket.
Another dark moment in Smallville. Dark moment, and I liked it. It really was shocking. That night in the barn, Clark is reading relationship advice books, and Lex arrives to help give his 2 cents on the Lana and Chloe friendship versus relationship versus.
I really love the way you played the line when you're like you read the book and you're like, you're really gonna think you're gonna find the answer in here? Like you didn't say it like that, but the way you did
Yeah.
it was so wise. There was so much wisdom in like, hey kid, let me tell you something.
Yeah, it wasn't condescending. It was just more like,
no,
come on. Their conversation is interrupted by Martha, who tells him that Principal Kwan has died in an accident.
Aww.
At school the next day, Chloe is frantically trying to put together things for Kwan's memorial in the torch, using work to avoid her feelings. Clark then discovers that Kwan's license plate is similar to the partial of Justin's hit-and-run driver. Chloe is resistant to the idea that Justin could have done this, but really I felt like Chloe was really crying because Kwan's dead. I felt like she really felt for Principal Kwan dying, no?
That's interesting you said,
because I like that choice if it was.
There was a little love-hate relationship there between Kwan and Chloe. He was always trying to be like, hey, just take it easy. This is a high school. And Chloe was like, no, I'm here to win. Like, I'm here to do it.
Right.
I didn't catch that, but that's an interesting.
I really caught that. I liked that. I just was like, oh my God, she really loved Principal Kwan.
Well, they had a little bit of,
they had history.
Like Tom said, they had a little history, then a little back and forth.
Yeah. At Luther Mansion, Lionel arrives to let him know he's selling Cadmus Labs, where Dr. Stephen Hamilton is doing his research. Lionel then goes on to speak down on Pamela Jenkins for leaving after his wife's death with Luther Corp stock, and tells him Pamela has cancer.
And she was always just a hanger-on because your mother had bad taste in help.
Yeah.
I think he pulled off, somehow he pulled off saying that line.
Yeah, he's a rotten guy, this Lionel Luther. Just not a good father. Clark decides to, he begged to differ. Clark decides to investigate the murder scene at Kwan's house and is met by Danny, Kwan's son and the Air Force recruiter at Career Day. We then find out Danny was the driver and not Principal Kwan. However, he knew about it and was protecting his son.
Oh, devastating.
I just watched this show called The Sinner, and it reminded me of that. Have you watched The Sinner? It's freaking dark. Jessica Biel. It's good. The first episode's incredible, and then it's pretty good after that. At Justin's house, Chloe finds his comics where he has recreated the entire murder scene frame by frame. This freaks her out and causes her to flee. Why would he do that? That's just so weird. Come on, it's evidence. You're going to put that right on the thing. Fuck off. At the Talon, Martha tells Clark she did the right thing by having Danny turn himself in, and that some secrets destroy families. Lana tells him Chloe is freaked out and needs him. Clark rushes back to the barn where Justin is attacking Chloe with telekinesis for betraying what they had together. She gets dropped, injuring her ankle, hit in the head with a horseshoe, and just before a chainsaw rips her apart. This mean son of a bitch, Justin. You don't have to rip her apart like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Clark steps in front of it, dismantling the chainsaw against his chest.
Most importantly, wardrobe survives.
The wardrobe.
Just saying.
Clark tells Justin he killed the wrong man and throws him across the barn, knocking him out. Lex goes
He
to
says,
visit.
and he also says, "You can't win."
You can't
You
win.
can't
I like
win.
that. I like Clark saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was just stern. It was like, this is a fact, buddy. You know, I loved it. I loved it.
Then yeah,
And by the way, when I say it now, I go, "You can't win," but in the moment, I knew you couldn't. You can't go. You can't win. You gotta.
You can't win. Yeah, just
It's the truth.
simple.
has anyone? I mean, he's one of the few who's thrown Clark he threw you across the room.
Yeah,
He's one of the few.
one of the few people that could do it. I think there was
Yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah.
I think
Dave Batista
Yeah,
comes to mind.
you know what's funny is when we get to that Dave Bautista episode, I'm going to text him and see if he'll come on for 10 minutes and talk with us.
I bet he would. He was the only person in my life who's ever picked up over his head and held me.
Yeah, we'll just talk tell him 10, 15 minutes. I bet he'll do it. He's a great guy. We're good
I was
friends.
like, they're like, we got all these wires. He's like, you don't need wires.
He doesn't
he
have
just-
an accent. He's
He
American.
picked me. Well,
You
he
don't
just-
have
in my mind.
wires. Lex goes to visit Pamela, and the two express their regrets and reconcile. This was touching. This was like he's losing someone else that really loved him unconditionally and took care of him.
And it also speaks to Lionel's sort of
Madness.
madness of what he,
I like this scene. I felt like, there was some emotion from Lex. There was a little bit of emotion, like, we don't
that
see
would
a
have
lot
been
of
that
emotion.
would have been an easy scene to breeze through for you.
Yeah.
You could have easily just been detached from it all and been like, yeah. You could easily done that and nobody would have said anything to you.
It was
But there-
fine.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I got to give credit to James Marshall. He would do scenes over and over and over and over and over and over and over. But, sometimes he wanted to get something out of you that maybe you weren't given in those takes.
Yeah.
And he pushed you and dragged it on just to get some little nuance, some moment. So anyway.
Heavy lift. He called it heavy lifting.
Yeah.
He said, if I think one time we were doing a scene, I don't remember what year or what it was. And I was bucking or whatever. And he's like, you just don't want to do the heavy lifting. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, that's my point. And I was like, huh? And he's like, action. I was like, what? And
Jesus. Back
Got
at the
you
Talon.
got you thinking.
Back at the Talon, Chloe tells Clark that Justin has been sent to the psych ward and teen. Then Clark asks Chloe out on a date to the journalism convention. He puts his hand on her hand. Lana looks on from afar jealously. And when Whitney walks in, she's about to have the "we need to talk" conversation, but drops the bomb. His dad has died. The episode ends at a rain-soaked funeral being played out to time after time.
So we called that sunny rain.
Oh yeah, you could tell.
In the funerals, it was sunny rain. You get the big lights and you get the rain towers. It may have been raining that day. Most likely it wasn't. It was probably cloudy. You put the 5Ks up there, you get sunny rain no matter what's happening.
I thought it was beautiful. That last those
gorgeous.
shots were just beautiful. I mean, and the emotion was there. You in the rain, you looking at Lana, Chloe looking at you, looking at each other, walking away, you walking away going, I'm not having either of these women.
Well, Clark standing there next to the angel. That was a big.
Yeah, that angel you were standing by in the pilot.
Yeah.
How did it get there?
Set deck.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have an incredible guest today on the show. This guy I worked with for 7 years. Tom's worked with him for 10 years. He's a wonderful human being. I remember when I directed, he was my DP. He was DP for Tom. He went on to direct tons of Smallville episodes. He has gone on to do other things, directing episodes of TV now in the DC universe, and just continues to grow as a director and a human being. I don't get to see him much, but here we go.
Legend.
We're going to get him on, and here he comes. Glen Winter, folks. This is Glen Winter.
Oh, my God.
Look
You
at
do
you.
have hair.
And you're still working.
I'm still
Where's your
working.
hair? Where's your hair?
Come on. It's still fucking there, man. Take your hat off, dude.
Oh, I got hair.
Yeah,
I
know
got
you do.
hair.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Glenn,
Beautiful.
by the way, is there anything behind you that we shouldn't see that is going to get you in trouble?
A spoiler? Oh,
Probably.
shit. Nothing?
There's nothing. What are you shooting right now?
Kill off number 2. I'm on a show called The Dead Boys Detectives. It's a 8-episode show for HBO Max.
Cool.
Wow.
Based on a Neil Gaiman graphic novel series from the early 90s.
I can tell you one thing, Michael. I don't care about the story. That show's going to look good.
It's going to look good. Did you direct the pilot as well?
No, I did not. So I'm actually doing something I've never done before. I am the producing director, which means was doing what Marshall was doing on Smallville and Beeman, which is I'm directing a couple of them, but I'm otherwise here as support for the directors and maintaining visual continuity and I guess other sorts of continuity.
Well, lucky them. Lucky those
Thanks,
other directors. I'm a big fan of yours. I talk about you all the time.
Glenn, we talk about you all the time. You
Glenn.
really kind of held our hands when we directed. You kind of, I knew you, we both knew you when you were very young, married at the time, not anymore. That's fine. You got
thanks
for bringing that up.
I gotta go.
You got the wonderful child, Max, who we all loved, who came on set. I've been to your house for dinner. I adore you. Tom adores you. First of all, it started really with Smallville. I mean, 10 years of this show, from DP to director to producing. You did a lot, but we'll get into
Smallville
that.
Your first gig?
Smallville was my first sort of like legit gig. I did a lot of sort of low budge kind of documentaries and sports animals playing sports movies. Like Air Buds, and I did a couple of monkey playing hockey movies.
Well, I was always very jealous of the relationship you had with Rosenbaum, because you guys would always talk. You guys would have these talks like in between takes about horror films, and like the visual things of horror. And I always remember being like, God, I don't know anything about that. Like I couldn't even break into those conversations with the two of you. I didn't know.
I've had conversations like that too. With like the early '80s was the sort of the golden age of horror movies, which is kind of like become quite sort of commonly known now, and especially with these new streaming services like Shudder and stuff. It's all like in Halloween now, like, which at the time was still kind of a underground kind of, albeit a successful horror movie. Now it's like it's like the biggest thing in the world. So, but yeah, back then, we loved to. Michael and I have, I think, an equal fondness of the 80s. And I'm really sorry you couldn't have been part of it. If I could go back in time, Tom, I would have tried to do more.
Hey, Glenn.
No, I just kind of, I remember sitting back and listening to you guys and being like, oh, man. I was just always confused about how, like, in Friday the 13th, you could run from Jason on one side of the cornfield and then run into him again. And that always bothered me. And maybe I'm plot oriented.
No, those movies sucked for the most part.
And then you guys would be talking about, but the visual, like, look at the lights. And I'd just be like, I'm going to go get some food.
Glenn, let me ask you this really quick. I want to get into Smallville, but after Smallville was over, you had a name then in the industry, at least in doing these sort of shows, and people like, this guy knows what he's doing. Did you jump on Arrow? Was it right after?
I mean, not immediately after. I continued to, I went and did Charlie's Angels with Miles and Al, who asked me to sort of rejoin the fray, which did not last very long. But I moved the family, and Max and Julie came to Miami for 3-4 months of craziness. And then I came back, and then David Nutter. So basically, it all fans out from Mr. Nutter. He's been such a big part of my life in so many different ways. So he asked me, and he asked, we had never actually worked together, but we had prepped in season 1, the second episode. I think you guys remember, and David threw his back out and couldn't do it. Yeah. So I was prepping second unit with him when that all happened. That was the only real interaction I'd had with him, but we kept in touch over the years, especially at like the 100th or some of the other parties. And so he asked me to shoot the Arrow pilot for him, which I was super excited and grateful for.
Was his back out? Was his back out once again?
No, it wasn't. Although he has had recurring. I think he's finally licked it. I just spoke to him not too long ago, but he's definitely had some back leg issues over the years. But he asked me to shoot the Arrow pilot, and that sort of really did, like, even though it's, at first I have to admit there was a bit of hesitancy in me of like, are we going back into, a similar fray that I'd been in with Smallville, especially because of, Justin had played the Arrow. But it was a completely different take on it with completely different. There was no Smallville people involved. in Arrow whatsoever, other than the Warner Brothers part of it.
JD wasn't
And-
there.
Yeah, JD was
Marcus?
there.
JD was there, yeah, but
I
I
thought
just
he
mean
was,
from, I mean above the line.
Right.
Oh yeah, I brought my peeps, as many as I could.
Yeah.
And so he asked me to do it, and so that just went off in a new direction. And I met the new producers, and then I, as part of my agreement, I got one episode to direct, which is a common scenario if you're negotiating a season and you're a cinematographer, and there's an room to like give you the opportunity. But I had to prove myself to them. They didn't know, they'd seen my Smallville episodes, but that's all I had. And then I did the Arrow pilot with David, which was a great success and a lot of fun. I learned a lot from him, and he was very much a mentor to me. Watching him prep, I got a front row seat to watching, the pilot master at work, and watching he preps really hard. I would say most of his, honestly, like, this is not to say anything other than his prep is more important than shooting him. It's what goes on behind the scenes before the show gets to the camera is really what I learned from him. I mean, on set too is obviously super important, but being able to be there for it.
What I didn't know anything when we did Smallville, but what I felt like I was in a situation with a master craftsman who I was safe. I didn't I feel like he knew what was happening, and it was just a beautiful thing to be a part of, being around him. And it still is. He's one of the most gracious, glorious people, talented I've ever met. And to those of you who, we talk about Glen Winter right now, if you don't know, Glen was on Smallville and then went on to be the reason and the visual sense in many ways in the heart of multiple shows beyond Smallville. So
the DC
that's
universe,
why I always talk about you, because we go to these conventions and everybody's like, do you feel responsible for Arrow and Flash? And I'm like, no, but I think Glen should. That's what I always say. I'm pretty sure Glen should.
That's
Glen,
really amazing.
how many episodes did you direct of Arrow and Flash and you Superman and Lois? How many have you done?
Yeah. I haven't counted. So I did about a dozen Smallvilles. Then I did about six or eight Arrows. Most of my career has been, since Smallville, has been working with Warner Brothers and Greg Berlanti. And so that sort of changed into a little bit of a good pilot run for me, where Greg trusted me to do the Supergirl pilot. So I've done 6 pilots in total since then, which is a whole other way of directing, which is sort of what I was getting at with David is and everything you said, Tom, is exactly right. It's so much of what I've learned is it's about comfort. Yes, obviously, how to package it all, and you have to understand how you're going to make your days and spend the money properly. But so much of this is letting the cast and crew. But like, as far as the cast is, like, it's very overwhelming. I don't have to tell you guys. It's to step into a production and be creating a new character. And I've just to be as nurturing as possible is the biggest part of a pilot, I would say. It is in directing an episode too, but by then everyone's feeling more confident and less insecure. Yeah. And every actor, whether they're showing it or not, has some level of insecurity. If they don't, I think there's something wrong. And they need someone there that they feel is in their corner. And it can be like, it can be at length talking about the character and motivation. Sometimes it can be just like, it's just like you're almost just like a best friend, like calming them down. It can be everything in between. And David does that, and he did that with me as a co-collaborator in the being a cinematographer. He makes everyone feel safe. Like he's got it, safe, and he's got it, and there's someone who's got a plan, and that you're doing the right thing. And if you're gonna play or deviate from a discussed plan, that's also safe, and there's nothing wrong, and he does that very, very well. So that's, I would say, like, in the world of directing pilots versus episodic, that has been probably the most fulfilling part of that process. As much as doing everything else is amazing and incredible and gratifying, it's the personal connection that you have with the actors, because often it's people who've barely been in anything. Which I think, Tom, you were very new to being in front of a camera, right?
I mean, Tom, get on your mark. What?
Yeah, what is it?
Hey,
Glenn, I want to talk about.
Mike was the pro. He was like the guy. He had at the time I thought he was like a real actor. You know what I mean?
Hey, Glenn, let's get into Smallville. Let's get into what you remember. Right now, we're on the episode. I don't ask you to remember the episode Crush, where Brody, what's his first name? Adam Brody was on the show, and he had telekinetic powers. James Marshall directed it.
Can I jump in real quick? So what happens on Smallville is we had alternating directors of photography, and they would overlap, which was great. And then we had different directors, and we had people who oversee all that. It was great. And one of the biggest things, really quick, I realized about Glenn, some DPs come in and they set up the master. You get it? Then they come in. It's a different set of instructions for the next shot. And then different set of instructions. Glenn, very early on, I remember being like, this guy knows what he's doing. Because I didn't know what I was doing at all, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure Glenn would come in and be like, we're doing this, and you were setting lights for later because you knew where you were headed.
Yeah.
Right.
Where other guys didn't do that, and no disrespect to them, it's whatever. But I just remember you just being always ahead. You always kind of knew where you were going, which is comforting. Yeah.
Glenn, real quick.
Yeah.
If I said I used to address the crew, I'm just so excited. I have to just talk to Glenn. Glenn, get so much.
Sorry,
Glenn.
I've been talking to you.
No. But two things. What did I say when I walked in the room that the whole crew would say? I'd say, wait, hold on. How's everyone's morning?
You would say, how are we? Janine would say, how are we?
No.
But what do you say?
I would say, how are we doing today? And then the whole crew would go, fair.
Oh, fair to horse shit.
Fair to horse shit. And one more. I'd walk in and I'd say, Bob. And the crew would say,
no.
These are insides. I will eventually discuss them. But this is 20 years ago, and Glenn still remembers this. I love it.
Bob, no involves a tent, if I remember.
No, Bob involves a hotel room.
A hotel room. Okay.
Remember,
The
Bob?
tent was the slalom skiing dream.
Oh my! No, that wasn't a tent. Oh, yeah, the slalom skiing joke.
All right, I got two for you, Glenn. Michael as president and not knowing his lines because he thought there was going to be right. Remember that?
Amazing. Yes.
Number two, Michael in the green screen. We didn't have to be
both tough. I still have pictures of that, and there's tears coming out of. So, have you guys told those stories yet?
Oh yeah,
at all?
Kind of.
Yeah, we tell all these stories. Most of the stories.
We try to stay episode specific, but still, those stories are just.
They were. If you guys, you guys weren't around for the plotting of that and the behind the scene, like that took actual production time. Like there was a dollar figure to those gags, which was
Lisa Lewis is like, what?
Yeah, it was just pure money off the screen. But I appreciate what you said earlier, Tom. I just like to say to that is like I just think it's super important for people to know where you are getting separate from the lighting thing, which it helps. I just think it's really important to lay out, okay, we are going to do this and this, so we know where we're going. So we're not going to, the thing we hate doing is doing something wide, going tighter, 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 and then doing something wide again. And you have to go back to something you did, which you could have done earlier. And part of the strategy on getting a show, it's funny, like I have been rewatching because I've been listening to you guys and I've been visiting season 1 stuff, which is very surreal. There's some really kind of cool, like organic photography that plays in one with the camera moving and was tricky to light. And
dude, I remember we were figuring this all out. No one had done this stuff before on television. We were figuring it out.
It was. I mean, obviously there was the beauty close-ups and the emotion and the soaring hearts of you guys. But ultimately, in between, in the expositional stuff or the action beats, and I credit Beeman for this. I started DPing the show halfway through the first season. So I think it was Leech was the first episode. And I actually listened to your guys' pod about that because that one is a really important episode in my entire career, to be honest. And Beeman said to me, I was driving him to the airport one day, and he said, "Okay."
He's like, "You're my DP, and you're driving me to the airport."
I would. Yes, yes, he did. He said, "Okay," because I was the second unit guy. So basically, quick story: I just had Max. I was working on one of those Air Bud movies, and Attila, who shot the first season, is a dear friend of mine, very talented cinematographer, still working today. Invited me to be part of the show as a sort of who would shoot the inserts and the and the second units, and immediately the show was off the rails. Like, so I was shooting full scenes, full time, concurrently, while you guys were shooting, with main cast. Normally, its second units would be, just stunts and stuff, but we were just, I was thrown right into the fire. And one of the first big sequences was the one where you got hit by the bus in front of the phone booth. That was my first big night where we lit up all of downtown Vancouver. Anyway, and I just had Max. He was a baby, and Attila said, "Hey, do you want to come work on the show? Because I know you just had a kid. It's just going to be once or twice a week, and you're shooting inserts." And then it was just full on.
They said the same thing to me. You want to just be on this TV show?
Yeah, say a few words.
They said it's an ensemble.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I give it a year or two at best.
Yeah.
And you're never going to fly.
Right.
So then, they realized that the show was too much going on, so they needed to have two DPs alternating. So I did Leech with Greg, and so to sort of come back to my original story, Greg felt that he wanted to establish more camera movement and things, and he said, "So you're going to have to learn how to light a 360," which for the listeners can be a tricky thing for a cinematographer to light for, because you have to hide the lights and you have to adjust the lights depending where the camera is, so it still looks good, basically. And so I had to learn very quickly, and I just sort of was like, "Yeah, no problem, I got it." But inside, I didn't know how to do it, and we just figured it out. And it became, I think, Beeman's style in Leech really led to the establishing of the visual, a lot of the vision, not all of it, but a chunk of the visual motif that the show continued with, which was camera movement and storytelling shots and making the camera an active participant in the stuff, rather than just always doing masters and close-ups, which we do, you have to do for the storytelling, but it's fun to do the other stuff.
Glenn, I remember you always as sort of, a great presence on set, just fun. And you were, calm, but also
except for one time.
Oh, no. I remember there were some times. I'm going to get to that.
I only have one time that
we'll get to that. But I've seen him stressed.
I'm not saying he wasn't stressed, but there was one time.
There was a lot of stress.
Marzi was directing an episode. We were in a graveyard. There wasn't any time left. It was like 2:00 in the morning, whatever. And Michael and I, somehow we got the giggles, and we all know what the giggles are, where you can't look at the other actor without just fucking laughing. Like you're exhausted. You're out of your mind,
Glenn
right?
snapped.
You're on acid. You're just like crazy. And you and I are looking at each other and we're just laughing. And I remember Marzi comes over and we're like, we're like Jack Nicholson as Joker. Like we're just out of our fucking minds. And Michael's like, don't wait to leave. And Marzi walks away, and it was like her first or second episode, so she had a lot writing. And I remember Glenn coming in and be like, "Guys, like literally stop effing around, like blah blah blah." And that still didn't work. We just had to laugh it out, and whether it was 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but it was time on the clock. You know what I mean? Well, it's $2,000 a minute. Yeah, when you're filming a television show, at least back then. So that's expensive. But other than that, you were always just a great, like, grace on set. Like
but you know what?
I always felt,
Tom,
happy when you were around.
I feel like I didn't realize how difficult being a crew member, let alone a director of photography, is. It's almost like you don't ever stop walking and doing something and having the other guys do things. Your work never ends. A director even sits down for a minute while you're setting up. He has a little time. You don't stop for 12 to 14 hours. And it's you hear a lot in the industry about people dying for a heart attack at 55 or 60 because they were in the business and they were a director of photography or a TV director. I can understand why. Do you know when to say no, Glenn? Do you know, because you worked so hard when you were younger, do you have to sort of like go, I know I can't bite off more than I can chew now. I know what I'm capable of. Does that ever come up now?
Yeah, I'm learning. I've learned recently that I think obviously part of it's I'm older than I was obviously on Smallville, but I've never been someone who's worked. I mean, Smallville was great too, because I wouldn't work between the seasons. Like I would work the 9 months that we would do, and I would take the 3 months and hang out with Max, or we would go, and also I got to alternate, right? So some shows back then that was sort of rare. DPs would, but if I had to do like 9-10 months of a season, which is pretty rare these days anyway, because streaming series are shorter, you could, and it's how you wear the stress too. Like the stress is the important part. If you take it, there's always going to be stressful days, But if every day is stressful and you make everything a stress in your mind, it's going to amp up the heart attack part. And I think what I've had to learn is to let stuff go, have more fun. I appreciate that your memory of me was having fun, but I think now I'm even, I've really learned to kind of relax more, but doesn't mean you're giving up. The tricky part is like, I'm always so all or nothing. So if I let go, then I really just tune out. I have a very tough time like going back to my chair and hanging out, because it's very hard for me. Even when I'm in my chair, I'm watching what the DP is doing. I'm making sure that the camera isn't starting to see something that I wasn't hoping to see or whatever. And it's very hard to kind of let it go completely, because then I really have trouble engaging again, which I presume is to some degree hard. But you guys probably have to learn how to, be in the moment and then turn it off and either go to your trailer and come back. It's much more on off for you guys, and you probably get used to that. Where you're right, as a DP, you're just always in the milieu. You're always helping, and you can't. There's DPs who will just let the director, suffer in their own agony if they don't feel that the director knows how to get themselves out of the situation. And that is one thing I could never do, because A, we'll never get home, and B, we're still all there to make the best show possible. And ultimately, even though we're more tired and on certain days than others, like, we still don't want it to be shit. And it's going to, our faces and our work and our fingerprints are on it. Right.
Well,
so,
I think you hit something on the nail on the head. And Michael and I've talked about this before, is that it's impossible to be scared and creative in the same moment. And I think one of the reasons why we all got along so well for so many years is we always endeavored to be creative within the box that we were in, whether the scene was not great or was exposition, whatever. We're not just trying to get it over with. We're trying to make it great within the confines that we have. And it sounds like you still have that, which is great. Michael, I think Michael has lost that, but
who are your top three
directors?
By the way, who are your top 3 directors on Smallville to work with? Yeah, to narrow it down.
So,
like
you can't say Janot.
No, it would have been. So, no, Beeman, Janot, I take cast members out of the equation. That's a separate category.
Yep.
Cast members who directed. I'm going to think about, I think Terrence was one of my favorites, because he really kind of got it. I would say, like, as far as like craftsmanship and pleasure and fun, those 3 guys were my favorites.
Yeah.
But I'd have to go back and working with working with some of my fellow crew members was really great. I thought Morgan did a great job. Mersey was obviously amazing. Mersey's continued to do amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm still in touch with all those guys. I'm still in touch with Morgan, still in touch with Mersey. And
Glenn, I miss Russ. Crew. I miss Russ so much.
Russ passed away a couple of years ago.
Russ and I had such a special relationship, didn't we?
Oh, and he loved you. And, that was one thing. So Russ, have you talked about Russ on the pod at all?
I have. We have a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and he was there's all these, beautiful souls that come in, and I think what we all responded to, and sort of what you guys just started this particular topic is that people really did care of what was happening within that box. When, again, we all showed up, like, again, Tom, I still remember you would come in and it would be fucking hot, and you'd be wearing your gym shorts and your sandals, but because we were shooting a close up, and you'd come in and you'd just be like, what are we doing? Yeah. And you were just like, it was uncomfortable. But then the cameras would turn on and you'd be fucking like in it, and you would ask the right question. Same thing with Michael, like everybody, there's nobody who ever phoned it in on that show. And if they did, it was like, I can't even remember. I remember times there were people who had there were certain guest stars, that had weird things happen. We remember those.
Yes.
But, for the most part, our core cast and our crew, I mean, again, I'm sure you've talked about JD, like JD,
Love.
One of my dearest, sweetest friends, hilarious. I don't think he really read a script in the 10 years of the show, but
didn't need to.
So engaged in the moment, and so like cared and would never leave the camera.
We tell a story about JD where it was a Clark Lana scene, and Lana saying something where she says she can't be with Clark anymore, and she walks away, and it's a dolly in on Clark's face, and they're like, cut, and JD goes, "You guys are breaking up?" I was like, JD, are you okay? And he was like, no.
Glenn, we love you. This has been the longest interview we've done because we have a whole show to do. But listen, this is
good luck.
But listen, I'm not saying that we want you to come back at least a couple of times per season. So
I would love it.
We really want you to be part of the show where every maybe 8 episodes, we're like Glen Winter's coming back to discuss the story.
Or honestly, if there's a couple like you talk about Obscura, we didn't know it meant that if it comes up
my bad.
in your head where there's a couple episodes that mean something to you, we'll
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Like the last one of this year, the one that the tornado one that like Tempest. I remember that being crazy, and there's some other ones. And once you guys get into once I started directing in the middle of the 5th season, for sure too. So but I think it's great that you guys are doing this.
If we last that long,
if you last that, it probably won't last that long.
Yeah, probably not.
But I really do appreciate that you guys are doing this, and I will just say this as a quick goodbye. Like it's been when you're doing the show and you're in the middle of it, I don't think you ever have any realization what it means to the rest of the world. And as I've gone on out into the world after Smallville and I work on other shows, I'll have like a B camera second assistant come up to me and is like, "You worked on Smallville?" And I'll offer them like a crew T-shirt, and it changed. I've had people come up and say it changed their lives. I know
because they don't say that about Flash. They don't say that about they don't. You know what I mean?
It was iconic. It was iconic, and the emotion and it really is was such a privilege to be a part of.
It's also been 21 years, so those 5-year-olds who watched it are now working for you.
I know that is true. Oh my God, that's so depressing.
I mean, we could just do a Glen Winter episode.
Dude, don't you love
just
that?
Like a Craig Beeman episode.
He's fantastic. We're gonna have Beeman on, guys, a couple times a year. Glenn a couple times. Alan Miles a couple times. Hopefully, each cast member on, 1 per season. It's fun. It just you learn a lot. Glenn taught me so much. He was there with me when I directed, and we had so much fun. And anyway, let's move on. We got to move on. This is interesting things of note. Another reference to Kent's origins. Chloe states that most men are from Mars, but Clark is from a whole other galaxy.
A whole other galaxy she doesn't even know of or something.
Yeah. The design of the hero of Justin Gaines' comic at the torch, flaming crow's feet with a blue suit, yellow shield, red S, and cape is a clear allusion to Superman. Donna Bullock, who plays Pamela Jenkins, is married to Sherman Howard, who played Lex Luthor in the 1980 Superboy TV series. Sergei Howd, who plays the priest, comes back in season 2's Dichotic, where he plays a teacher. The book that Lex brings to Pamela in the hospital, the same book that both Pamela and Lionel were observing or reading previously, is titled Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. Overall, there was a lot of good things in this episode. There were. I mean, again, I was a little bit like, oh, telekinesis guy. Okay. But a lot of the stuff was really good. It was powerful.
Well, I one thing I did write here, I know we had a lot of time with Glenn there, but a couple of things is love and perceived betrayal was a big thing. What is love?
What is love?
And the perception of betrayal, a number of our characters dealt with that in this episode. And then redemption. And the risking of emotions, Chloe risks, Lex will risk, Clark and Lana seem not to risk, which is something I saw in this. And then going back to what I said in the previous episode, where the similarities between Lex and Chloe with their moral compass, if you will, or at least the standards for themselves that they hold to other people, I thought came out in this.
Here we go.
Right, Ryan?
No, I agree. They were all betrayed. Chloe and Lex, and I liked what he said.
Yeah.
I thought that was poignant. Thanks, Tom.
Hotline 213-538-2883. These are patron privileges. Patron privilege. Join patreon.com/talkville. Please join and help support the podcast. Here's Mickey. Mickey, let's hear your question.
By the way, Glenn directed Winchester's.
Oh, hey guys, it's Mickey from Michigan. This one's for Crush. So, there was quite a bit of teenage drama between Clark, Chloe, and Justin when Clark gets jealous of Justin. What I want to know is, being adults when you portray these characters, did you ever struggle to get back into the mindset of your younger selves, being so much more older than them? And did you ever ask to reshoot any scenes?
I think we're all insecure as actors and be like, are you sure you got it? Are you sure you got that take? Should we do it again? Can I just do one more? I mean, that's sort of the mentality of actors anyway. But what do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I don't think I specifically asked to retake or reshoot a scene. I think it's maybe can I do it again? Like you said, getting in touch with our younger selves. I mean, I think we've all experienced jealousy. The girl that you've been hesitant to engage, who then gives somebody else attention, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? You know, that's I hope everyone's experienced that. That's called life.
Man, I remember I had
Michael, you're used to not getting girls, right? When you were younger?
Well, and
I
couldn't get nailed in a wood shop. I remember, sorry if I'm inappropriate, but that's life. Sometimes you are. I was in study hall, and there's this girl, Laura Paris. That was her name, Laura Paris, Parus. And we talked every day in study hall. And I was crushing hard. And we became friends for a good year. And I just didn't have the guts to say anything to her. And we talk on the phone. And one day, she calls me. And we're talking, and she goes, yeah, I just don't know what to do. I don't know if I even want to say this. I go, what? What? No, say it. She goes, I don't know. It's embarrassing. I don't know. And I go, well, dude, she goes, I don't know. I have a crush on this guy, and I'm not sure he knows it. He should know it. And she went on and on, and I'm like,
thought it was you this whole time.
Oh
like,
my
during this
God.
conversation?
I am like, I'm not going to say it. I was going to say I was aroused. I was like excited, and I was like, oh my God. And we kept talking and talking and talking. And then she was like, I go, just say it. It's okay. You could tell me anything. And she said this other dude's name. Mike Barnett. I'll never forget. And I just was shut down. I thought for sure I had a chance with her. I told her that at a reunion when I saw her years later. Anyway, here we go.
She's like, I'm single now.
I know. No, she wasn't.
They got married and divorced.
Yeah.
So, did it work out?
Okay, here's Esteban, another beautiful patron.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Tom. It's Esteban G from Texas, wearing my Talkville hat and my Talkville shirt. My question is for episode 19, Crush, specifically for Michael. In this episode, we start learning a lot about Lex's past relationship with his mom and with his caretaker. What kind of preparation did you have to do for those emotional scenes with those characters? And like, how much did they tell you about Lex's past at this point, or was it still very unknown?
Very unknown. I didn't know really anything about Lex's past and what happened to his mother. And I'm glad I didn't. But I just kept thinking of my grandma that passed away right before that, within a year. And I just thought about how much I loved her. I remember thinking, and that got me into the scene. Usually it's called sense memory. It's like I learned when I was studying theater in college, and if you just take a moment from your life that affected you a lot, if you just zone in on that and the feelings you have towards the person you're talking to, whether it's hatred or, love or whatever it is, it helps. It certainly helped me in scenes. So that definitely helped me and helped me get there. So thanks, Estefan. I appreciate you. And here we go. Another patron. This is Ray H. Ray.
Hello, this is Ray in Japan. I have a question about the episode Crush. So do you think Clark genuinely liked Chloe as more than a friend? Or do you think that he's just reacting to the fact that he found out that Chloe likes him?
Clark, what do you think?
The latter. I think the latter. I think, by the way, I don't think he knows either way. I think he's juggling attention. He wants her attention. Whether he's a high school kid, he doesn't know what it is. We make a lot of mistakes in high school. Hopefully you do, and you learn from them. And I think this is one. He's not getting her attention, so he does what he can. And then, I don't think that if Chloe was like, you know what, Clark, you're right, let's do this, I don't think it would have lasted. I don't think it had what it needed. Like Michael said, I think there was a Clark Lana thing that just felt that it was there, I think there was just a friendship between Clark.
But you put your hand on her hand, and that was kind of affectionate. You're like, what the hell's going to happen here? I don't know.
Well, that's what you're supposed to. I feel like Clark watched the movie, and that's what somebody did in a movie, so that's what he's going to do. You know what I mean? Like, this is what you're supposed to do? I don't know.
Here's Brian.
Hey, guys. This is Brian C. at Patreon from Albuquerque. See another By the Numbers Freak of the Week episode, and we get a huge dose of the Clark, Chloe, Lana love triangle that culminates with the funeral of Whitney's dad. My question is for Tom. They really had the water coming down, man, for that funeral montage. Did you get all that in one take, or did you have to spend all day in a wetsuit?
I'll be honest with you, I don't recall, but I will say that this went on throughout 10 years where the crew and the wardrobe and everybody really tried to protect you so that you weren't just freezing and miserable. Like sometimes we would do like scenes where you're wet and they'd give you like wetsuit shorts to wear underneath your costume or things that keep you warm. And there's a makeup consideration because when the water hits the makeup, it runs or it doesn't. I would assume that probably once the camera got dialed in, I imagine the rain towers started and we probably did it maybe 1 or 2 times because it's too time consuming to do it more than that. But I don't recall specifically.
Hi, this is Eddie from New York City. I was just wondering if you guys knew why the Principal Kwan character was killed off in this episode. He was seen in quite a few episodes up to this point. Do you know if it was meant to be a short-term part or if he was killed off for storyline purposes, as they say, or if there was something going on behind the scenes? I was just a little curious about that.
Good question. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't know. Maybe Al will email me after he listens to this episode. The creator.
I feel like this is the kind of role where an actor gets a scene or two in an episode, and people like what he did, and so they keep him in mind, and they see opportunities for that character going forward. I really think it's a very clear representation of that. I mean that in the best way. I think he nailed it. By the way, John Glover did the same thing.
Yeah.
This is Jeff from Edmonton, Alberta. And the funeral scene, my God, that is a beautiful scene. I just wanted to say all of you acted the hell out of that scene. I used that scene in one of my media studies classes I teach at the university here to illustrate how powerful TV is. Love the podcast. Keep doing what you're doing.
I remember, I could be mistaken, but I don't think. I didn't want to do this scene because I don't know Whitney. Why would I go to Whitney's funeral? And I talked them out of it. I think they wanted Lex there for some reason. And I talked my way out of it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm going to a high school. I don't care about Whitney's dad. And I think they let me go. I remember something like that where I talked them out of having me there.
Why would you be there other than to like hold Clark's hand?
Exactly.
For some reason?
Maybe you're there for support, but yeah, I don't know. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong. Okay, this is an unnamed patron. This is the last, and then we're almost done with this episode. Got some fun little things to do, but
in the beginning of this episode, the doctor gets trapped in the elevator, and I would like to know if you guys have any stories of ever getting stuck in an elevator.
No stories of stuck in an elevator, but it terrifies me. I think I would freak out and cry like a little infant. Tom?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get stuck in an elevator.
No, Ryan? I would cry.
I feel like nowadays, though, like I feel like if I got stuck in an elevator, I don't know if I'd freak out right away. I think I'd be like, all right, somebody knows how to deal with this pretty quickly. Like we have alarm buttons and stuff but if those didn't work, I'd be scared.
This is the last one. Mole from London. Whitney's dad's funeral was incredibly moving. Key characters in that moment were dealing with their own feelings of sadness and longing. My question is, did you actually all really film in the rain?
Rain towers. Rain tower. Sorry, what rain? They're not towers. That sprinklers. It's usually some version of a square that's suspended above you with multiple rungs with holes in it, and then there's a water truck that sometimes is not heated, and there's a big difference between the two. And they pump it through, and then it showers down like fire sprinklers in a building. And that's what, and it's chunky rain, if that makes any sense.
Chubby rain, thick rain.
There's a movie made Chubby Rain.
Yeah, the Bowfinger.
So that you can see it, and it's designed that way. Because if it just spritzes, you don't see it. So in Bowfinger, yeah, it's Chubby Rain. And you have to get used to it because you can feel it hitting you. That's
Rosenbaum rating. Here we go. As you know the ratings by now if you're listening to this episode, so I'm not going to tell you what they are. Obviously 3 roses is the best, 3 bombs is the worst, heater is right down the middle. Tom, let's start with Ryan.
I am actually going to give this one a dose.
2 roses.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah.
Utah, give me 2.
Yeah.
2 roses for Tom.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a rose and a half.
All right.
Rose and a half for me. Wasn't quite 2. Right. I wouldn't say this is great. Oh my gosh, but it was good.
I'll give Glen Winter 3 roses for sure.
Always give Glen Winter. All right, death and save count. How many people got saved? How many died? 2 people died. Principal Kwan and Whitney's dad. 1 was saved. Chloe saved Clark. Wait, how did Chloe save Clark?
That's the other way around.
Clark saved Chloe.
Yeah.
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 Jeez. Through 19 episodes, 29 people have died. 34 have been saved. It's now time for Ryan's favorite scene.
Okay. Oh, I was just reminded. No John Schneider in this episode. Just realized.
Yeah,
Nope.
there was no John Schneider.
Where was he?
He was on an errand. Metropolis. I don't know. 3 scenes that stood out to me. First, scene number 1, where Justin and Chloe smooch and all the stuff is floating around them. The alien, the levitating. Scene number 2, Justin and Clark's showdown in the barn with the slow-mo and the fighting. Thought it was cool. And then scene number 3, the end with all the rain and the death.
I'm going to go 3.
I'm going to go 3 too. I think it's the rain.
Damn it.
Ryan?
Yeah.
It's the rain.
It was the rain. I wanted to, I wanted to give like a scene to Adam Brody because I just thought he was, because I think this whole thing like hinges on like how good the villain is, and he was like Amy Adams tier to me.
Yeah,
I think he was really, really good and compelling and convincing. But
if he's not good, the whole thing is a
wash.
minus 3 bombs.
Oh yeah, he sold like all of it.
Yeah,
and then the end, I teared up.
You did?
I did. Maybe it's because I think watching this with headphones on changes, because like I was able to hear like time after time, just everywhere inside of my head. I think I was manipulated, and it worked. Not right now, though.
No, you're not going to cry if I sing that.
No. I'm aroused, though.
Guys, make sure you go to the website, talkvillepodcast.com, for awesome merch. We finally have merch. Go to patreon.com/talkville, become a patron, help the podcast out. That's it for this episode. Stick around next week and get our perspective on episode 20, Obscura. We're nearing the end of the first season, folks. Lots of good stuff and a big guest star coming up. Let's take the discussion online. Let us know your thoughts on the episode over on our socials at Talkville Podcast or at Talkville Pod. And if you want to let us know your thoughts for other episodes, season 1, leave a voicemail at 213-538-2883. Ryan, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Thomas?
Wish I could say the same.
And last but not least, everyone, always hold on to Smallville. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Guys, we never forget you. These are the shout outs to our lovable patrons. What would we do without them, Tom? What would we do without them?
We wouldn't be doing a podcast.
That's for sure. I wouldn't do either podcast if it wasn't for the patrons. You guys save the show. Patreon.com/Talkville. You're what it's all about. Thank you so much for all the love. Become a patron today. Support the podcast and go to talkville.com for merch and stuff. Right now, we're going to do the shout outs. Here we go. Tom, take it away.
Nikki G, Leanne P, Raj C, Janine R, Santiago M, Leah S, Little Lisa, Tom T, Sophie M, BetsyD, Liliana A. I always have trouble with those. Abby?
I think it's
Abby P, Chris F, Kimberly E, Michael H, Ray H, Karen M, Danielle B, 99 more, Leanne N.
Lilani N.
Lilani N.
Catherine P, Brett G, Super Sam, always hold on to Smallville, Jeff E, Esteban G, DJ Kento. Esteban, I thought I sent you something. Anyway, DJ Kento, Twitch, Garrett W, Kimberly L, Teresa, Justin S, Tom N, Tony V, Jason W, Osama A, Nancy D, Brian G, Sarah W, Arton K, Justin T, and Lucy O.
Grape Jelly 817, Jeremy G. I want to thank Amanda R, Teddy 127, Michael P, Theo M, Ryan R, Michael's favorite, Grumpyitis, Jordan M, Hillary B, The Blur with a 3, right? Greg G, Christy R, Pollyanna, Karen P, Derek G, Jor-El, my dad, Richard S, Heather and Greg, Nikki P,
Nico P. He's been a patron for a long time. Both podcasts.
I'm sorry, Nico. I get distracted by the next one.
My Greek friend.
So, Michael, why don't you take it off at Heather and Greg?
I made Talkville say butts. Okay, that's the name. I made Talkville say butts. Brian H. Hidden Camp. Jason M. Georgina B. Eric K. Kevin E. Craig. Nanine W. Stephanie K. Darth Achilles. Richard
I like
R.
that one.
I like it too, Darth Achilles. Richard R. Finky. Kenny S. Sydney S. Tito G. Remix. I like that. Stephen F. Damn, who's that? Jeanette E. Deadvid. Allison H. General Zod. Amara and Ev. It's _Kitty, Crack. That's an Irish term. Kraic. Connor M. Araceli's R. Big D.
Achilles?
Big D. Andrew B. NC. And Doug R. Couldn't do it without you.
Very creative. Folks.
Yes, very creative. And long. Some of them are actually long. We'll see you next week. We love you. Thank you.